record. Okay, that's recording. Now we can share. Okay, so you can see slides again, I hope, and I'll start a bit of a slideshow here. Please, if at any time you lose the slides or something like that, let me know. It's going to get very boring if you're just looking at a blank screen or at me. Yeah, okay. So, as I said, welcome to the graduate diploma in cardiac sonography. It's great to have you all on board. Let me say that you've done very well, both to achieve the entry criteria, an undergraduate degree, but especially, obviously, clinical training, and we'll talk a lot more about that. And hopefully things will be a lot clearer, both in terms of the structure of the course and what is expected of you, including with regards to clinical training at the end of the next, I don't know, hour to hour and 15 minutes. We'll have questions at the end. I'm very happy to stay for longer than that as well. So the agenda for today, we'll go through some of the aims of the course, the design, resources, expectation, people that you'll meet in time, and there's plenty of opportunity for questions at the end. Okay. So let me start by telling you a little bit about the aim of the course. So we want to provide a course that's well structured, and I'll tell you a lot rather about the structure of the course shortly. We want it to be well structured and foster knowledge and skills and develop professional abilities so that you are all, upon graduation, able to perform high quality ultrasound examinations of the heart. So some moving images, some of you will be getting familiar with the kind of images here. And what you see there are three of the imaging modalities: two-dimensional imaging, Doppler imaging, tissue Doppler imaging. And throughout the course, or throughout the duration of the course, you'll be developing skills with regards to each of those imaging modalities. Obviously, there are new technologies such as 3D and others like deformation imaging that are becoming more widely used. But still, the majority of studies remain, in the majority of studies, two-dimensional imaging, Doppler imaging, whether it be color or spectral Doppler or tissue Doppler, remains are used most often, and they remain the key modalities to get used to. And the second aim, we really want to develop graduates with knowledge, skills, and abilities so that not only upon graduation, are you able to acquire high quality images, perform and report images well, but we want you to have a platform from which to develop further. And so when new technologies are introduced, you're able to adopt them into your practice. Okay. So we want to help you to develop the knowledge of cardiac anatomy and physiology. Obviously, that's going to be a real core, is going to be core knowledge, and of the cardiovascular system more generally, of cardiovascular disease. Obviously, initially you'll study normal anatomy and physiology, and over time you'll be introduced to different diseases and how they present, and how they appear and what they do to cardiac function. Ultrasound physics is a key as well. It's really important to know how the images you are acquiring are developed. You know, what is happening within the transducer that you're holding against a patient's chest. Why the, different controls do different things on the machine. And so ultrasound physics is an important part of what you'll be studying. Skills, well, operating the ultrasound machine, acquiring images, measuring images, are the kind of skills that you're going to be developing. And in terms of professionalism, we're going to want you to be communicating well with people, collaborating well with people, and hopefully you'll be able to develop beyond the course professionally and have a really fulfilling career. With regards to the design of the course, it's structured in such a way that things are presented initially that sort of there are concepts or new new areas of study presented, but certain things will repeat. Everything obviously we want to be presented to you in a logical structure. So that's, for example, one of the reasons why we start with normal anatomy before introducing disease. And the way we've developed things, we're using a model called a spiral curriculum. So you start with, in this case, and using the anatomy example, you start with normal anatomy and you build on that. That's not to say that you will exhaust normal anatomy initially. So we'll present some normal anatomy and then build on that with some disease. We'll return to normal anatomy then and go into more detail, and then disease and more detail about disease. So there's that development in terms of concepts, and there's a reinforcement of the topics and that you're going to be studying. For example, one of the key skills that you're going to want to develop is to be able to acquire images and measure them so that you can give an indication about a patient's left ventricular systolic function. So in the first year of the course, we'll be looking at how to acquire images and measurements so that you can give what's called a global analysis. Okay, so you can tell generally what's happening. And then in second year, we make that more regional. So there are occasions when ventricular function is reduced, not globally, but in particular segments. For example, if someone has a heart attack, it affects the heart, but depending on which blood vessel is the culprit vessel, it will affect a particular part of the heart. And so assessing regional function is really important. With valvular disease, we'll start looking at some of the qualitative ways of estimating and categorizing valvular abnormalities before we look at quantitative things. So what we mean is qualitative things is really going on their appearance. Quantitative things are making sort of mathematical calculations. And then another example, congenital heart disease. In first semester, you look at cardiac development. In second year, we'll start looking at some of the common congenital lesions. So that's a little bit of an introduction to the structure of the course and its design. Can everyone still follow? Everyone happy?
Yep.
Okay. Over the course of 2 years, you'll study 8 units, okay? And the units are divided into essentially 2 types. There are principles of cardiac sonography units, and there are practice of cardiac sonography units, okay? The principles deal with more or less the theory. The practice, well, as the name suggests, the practical elements. Now, that's not to say that the two are meant to be separate. Again, the design is such that the principles and practice units are meant to have some overlap. But you'll see within principles, there are certain modules within each unit. For example, in the principles of cardiac sonography 1, the 2 modules will be cardiac anatomy and physiology and ultrasound physics. Okay, and then within the practice of cardiac sonography 1, there are 3 modules: image acquisition and measurement, ultrasound machine operation, communication and introduction to professional practice. So while these units are separate and there are modules within those certain units, there will be obviously some overlap. It's a very practical skill that you're going to be learning to develop, and being able to integrate theory and practice is a really important thing, okay? So that's one of the things, especially when you come on campus for the seminars, that we're going to be wanting to try and help you to do. One of the really important things that you're going to have to be familiar with is logging into the course homepage, because most of the lectures, almost all of them are delivered online, okay? And they start next week. From tomorrow at midday, you'll have access to the site, okay? Access is via what's called views. So if you're looking at the university homepage and there's just a screenshot of the homepage, you'll see highlighted in a red circle up in the left-hand corner, the acronym views, okay? That's where you click in order to access the homepage. The next screen will look something like this, okay? And you use your username and your password in order to log in. And then you log in, and hopefully everything going well, from midday tomorrow, you'll have access to this site, okay? And you're going to get very used to accessing it. After a little while, it'll be second nature, but just going through it slowly the first time, okay? I spoke about lectures, and I spoke about the units. In the Principles of Cardiac Sonography 1 unit, in first semester, there'll be 8 lectures, okay? They're listed there, and I'll show you where to find them on the view site in a moment. But they're also listed in the learning guides that you should all have as well. I hope you have the learning guides that I sent to you via email. They're really important. You can access them from the website, but may I suggest that in the very least you save them to your hard drive, or what may be better still is to download them, or rather to print them off, because they've got important information. And then there are the lectures, the practice of cardiac sonography, and you'll see that there are just a few less in number than principles. So there, in principles first semester there are 8. In practice of cardiac sonography 1 first semester there are 6. As I was saying, I will show you the view site in a moment. One of the most of the resources that you'll be required or that are recommended will be available to you via the website. So textbooks will be available to you. You don't have to, you should not have to purchase textbooks, okay? Having said that, a lot of you will want a hard copy of a textbook. I certainly like hard copies, but you'll be able to access the e-version of the textbooks again via the View site. Another really important part of the design is that every semester you come to the clinical school at Blacktown. So the clinical school is located right next to Blacktown Hospital. So it's not at the Campbelltown campus, so don't go there. Other people have gone there in the past, and you'll just end up an hour or so late on the first day. The clinical school is right next to Blacktown Hospital. That's where all of the seminars are going to be held, within the building that's pictured there. And those other illustrations indicate some of the things we'll be doing, okay? There'll be ultrasound machines, there'll be patients, there'll be images for you to acquire, lots of practical things. This is a key date, and make note of it. These slides will be available via the View site tomorrow, but make a note of this. The first seminar, the seminar for this semester, starts on Monday the 30th of March. So that's not all that far away, okay? So it's in week 5 and we're in week 1 at the moment. Monday the 30th of March to Thursday the 2nd of April. Generally speaking, activities each day will start in the afternoon, about 2 in the afternoon, and will go through till about 7:30 at night. The reason we don't start in the morning is in the morning, all the medical students are here and they kind of take over the clinical school for the morning, and then they go off to the hospital in the afternoon. From the afternoon, we have a lot more flexibility, and we're able to get to rooms and that kind of thing a lot more easily. Clinical training remains a really key part of the course. When you come to the seminars, we'll be practicing skills with you, image acquisition, image measurement, you know, from the essentials to start with of, you know, positioning transducers, positioning patients, acquiring images, making images. And hopefully this is going to mean that when you return to your clinical training site, you'll have some more skills that then you're meant to build on. Clinical training is a really important part of the course, okay? You've already sent via your application a clinical training verification form, and we have those, so don't worry about that. But what I'm going to ask you to send me, and this is another important take-home message, okay? Please send me before next Monday, that's before Monday the 9th, an email, okay? Please use your Western Sydney email account when you're corresponding with me, okay? So via your Western Sydney email account, and you should all have that by now, send me your clinical supervisor's name, their preferred name and their surname. Their phone number is not so important, but their email address in the first place, because I want to be able to correspond with them next week. I really need to be in touch with them, so as soon as possible, I can start providing them with some information about the structure of the course and what the first semester is going to look like, and when you will be coming on campus, assessment items, so that we can start working with your clinical site to really try and enhance both the time you spend there and to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Okay, I'm going to do something just a little bit fraught with danger here. I'm going to I'm going to share my screen with you. I'm going to go to one of the learning guides. So can someone, I can't see many of you, can someone please say whether they can see the learning guide there on the screen? Yeah, you can? Okay. I want to just, you already have a copy of the learning guide. But I just want to go through a couple of key parts. And in particular, you're going to want to know about assessments. So the learning guide includes information about assessments. There's an assessment summary. And this is the assessment summary for Principles of Cardiac Sonography 1. And as you'll see, there are 3 assessment items in this. The first assessment item, or the first assessment, will occur in week 7. So that's after the seminar, okay? And then the next one in week 12, and then the final written exam in week 16. The first of the assessment items is an online quiz, okay? So the online quiz, the structure of them is usually very much the same. They're 20 questions, most of them are multiple choice questions, okay? So you're just asked, a series of questions, or rather, you're asked a question, you're presented with a number of different possible answers, and you choose one, okay? It's single best answer in all of the multiple choice questions that we give you, okay? And each of the online exams will be related to specific lectures and the tutorial related to them, okay? So online quiz 1 is in week 7. The second online quiz is a little bit later in week 12, and it will be testing different material, okay? Online quiz 1, the first 4 lectures, online quiz 2, the next ones. And then the final written exam. I will reinforce things about these when you come for the seminar. So if you feel as though when you're thinking about things tomorrow, you're not completely on top of what assessment items are going to occur and what they're going to include, don't worry. We'll go through this again, and you've got the learning guides. Okay. Let me. I've stopped sharing for a moment. I'm just going to share again something different. Sorry. So I hope that you can see the other learning guide now. So the Practice of Cardiac Sonography learning guide on the screen. That's what you should be able to see, okay? If not, please let me know. Okay, the Practice of Cardiac Sonography learning guide. Let me just make a single page. In the Practice of Cardiac Sonography 1, there are 4 assessment items, okay? The 4 assessment items are an applied project, a practical exam, a written exam, and a logbook. I just want to talk about 2 of them in particular. We will, just like the Principles of Cardiac Sonography 1, we will talk about all of these when you come on campus for the seminar. But let me just mention 2 of them because they're particularly important. The practical exam and the logbook, okay? Both of them are what's called threshold. So to pass a unit, you need to pass threshold exams, okay? So potentially you can get, say, 55 out of 100 and still not pass a unit, if that makes sense, because you may have failed a threshold exam. Hopefully that won't happen, but I'm just trying to highlight what a threshold exam means. Okay. The practical exam, there will be a practical exam every semester. The structure of them will be somewhat the same in first year. The practical exams, they'll involve some imaging and measurement stations. So that is to say you'll need to acquire images and measure them. And then there'll be some other stations where you just observe images and make comments about them, okay? Again, I'll tell you more when you come in for the seminar. This is just an introduction, okay? The logbook is another important thing. Via the View site, you'll be able to see an exemplary logbook, that is to say an example of one that's been kept. The logbook, as you'll be able to read in the learning guide, has two parts. One of it is a record of the ultrasound exams, the echo exams that you observe and then over time complete yourself. Okay. And in time, it is expected that you're acquiring images, okay? Initially, if you've only just started and you're observing, that's okay. But in time, it's very important that you start acquiring images and making measurements. You won't be able to pass if that's not the case, okay? So that's the imaging record. The second part of the logbook is each semester you'll be asked to submit something else. And in the first year, it's just reflections, okay? So they're mainly about some of the interaction with patients and with colleagues that you're meant to reflect on. And I'll elaborate on that. What I recommend that you do is that you read again the learning guide and get familiar with these assessments so that when you come for the seminars, you've got questions related to these, and that'll make it much more likely that it's a kind of a helpful discussion for everyone. Okay. Let me stop sharing again. Go back to the presentation. I've got it. I can see it. Okay, I'm going to go back to the presentation again. Hopefully it's going to be seamless. So I hope that you're looking at a white screen with design in the top corner. So each week you can expect information from me, but it will very rarely occur via email. If I want to contact you personally, if I've got, something that obviously doesn't need to be shared or is not appropriate to share, or it's just, relates just to one person, I will send an email, okay? But if it's for everything if it's for everyone, and most often it will be, there'll be announcements, and every week there'll be at least 2, sometimes 3 announcements. So get into the habit of checking a couple of times a week the Views site. Obviously, you're going to want to do so to access lectures and other material, but just to check announcements. For example, next week, I'll announce how to access lectures. But over the next couple of weeks, starting next week, I'll give you more information about the seminars and how to prepare for them, so that when you come, you've got a good idea of what's going to be covered. You're very clear about groups that you're going to be in. You're very clear about the structure, the time each day that you're meant to arrive, etc., etc. They'll also be starting week 3. I'll post from Wednesday in week 3, just some discussion points that you're free to, enter into. This is just for your benefit, just to sort of open up perhaps a line of discussion that you may find helpful, related usually to something that's been covered in lectures that week. Okay, so announcements most importantly, and discussions. As I was saying also, when you are able to access views from midday tomorrow, you'll notice that you're able to access the textbooks. While I'm thinking of it, you'll see that the site in the left, on the left-hand side, as you look at it, there's a black column, and that's it's divided into sections. A learning zone, a communication zone, an assessment zone, and a support zone. And the learning zone is where you're going to sort of access most things from. The communication zone's a little bit different, just to give it a little bit of structure. But anyway, in the learning zone, by clicking on the readings and resources, you're able to access the textbooks and other things related to those units, according to whatever you click. So that's an example. So you'll see there are a couple of the textbooks that you can access online. If you want an idea of what textbook you might want to buy, if you do want a hard copy of a textbook, I recommend that you buy the textbook of clinical echocardiography. So the author of that is Catherine Otto. You'll be able to access the textbook via the View site, but if you want a resource to turn to often, that's one that we'll use throughout the course. So that might prove to be a really helpful one if you like hard copies. Some expectations, starting with some of the things that I expect from you. Please, if you're unable to do something, for example, if you can't come to the seminar, let me know. Now, sometimes things are just unavoidable, and you won't be able to make it. If, I don't know, one of your siblings is ill, or whatever the case may be, okay? But please let me know. The seminars are really important, but things happen, and we'll try to be understanding. It just means I'll be able to get material to you sooner rather than later, or take things into consideration. Moreover, if you're worried about an assessment coming up, notify me. It may not be the case that I can give you an extension, but I'll obviously try to accommodate as best I can, okay? In first year, it doesn't matter so much. Second year, it will, but please, be very mindful of the fact that most of the assessments, we're going to be asking you to submit your own work. And this is very important when we're talking about the online exams. They're exams that are meant to be for you to demonstrate your knowledge, your skills. They're not a collaborative thing, okay? In the end, if you're sharing things or something like that, in the least, you'll be sort of letting yourself down. At worst, you'll sort of potentially have an academic penalty, and that is never pleasant. Yeah, treat everyone respectfully. My big hope is that just like other years, you guys will all get on really well. All of the other years have had their own WhatsApp groups so that they can communicate. They can share thoughts, etc., etc. And I'm very happy for you to do that. To work with one another. That's been one of the really good developments in other years. Be very respectful of one another. Be very respectful of the patients who'll be here and the tutors who'll be here to support you as well. And as I said, the sooner you reach out to me, the better. Most issues, you'll want to contact me, okay? I'll be your first point of call. If there's a really serious issue and it needs to be escalated, you may still want to contact me, but obviously there are people in the School of Medicine much higher than myself, and it may well be that it's something that, I don't know, the Deputy Dean or the Dean needs to look into. Those people are there for a reason, and if things are important and you need to reach out to them, that's understandable. But most often, I'll be the person you want to contact first. There are responsibilities that I have too, and I just want to again highlight a couple. I've got to treat everyone fairly and instruct you all as well as I can, and I want it to be, want to be providing you all with information. I don't want to exclude anyone from any of the material or advice or help that is to be given. Okay. I won't be the only person assessing things, but I'm the person that coordinates that and has the final say. Want to do that fairly and objectively and consistently according to set criteria. So all the assessment material that you're given will have criteria that are used in order to mark that particular item, and we will use those, and they've been developed to provide a framework so that things are marked consistently. And we'll try and make reasonable accommodation in terms of assessment tasks. If, for example, there are some limitations that you have, or as I was saying, there's illness or misadventure. There are university policies related to illness and misadventure, and they're available via the uni the website. Okay. One thing that's really important, I think, to start considering and start trying to develop is, this course is a very vocationally directed course, which is to say, setting out undertaking this course, you've got a very clear pathway. You know what you're aiming for. And as a cardiac sonographer, you're going to want to, develop certain professional, attributes and skills and behavior. And I strongly encourage you to really try and start, obviously, developing and enhancing those now. So they're attributes and skills obviously related to acquiring images, but their behaviors too. It's really important that you start learning to deal with patients, to relate with colleagues, to relate with peers really well, okay? That's a really important thing in this profession. And what I encourage you to do is treat the clinical training that you attend, the seminars and exams in that light, which is to say, I strongly encourage you at your clinical training to, to obviously behave in a manner that's, appropriate of a professional, to dress in the same manner too. And we'll be expecting you to do the same for the seminars and exams. Now, with regards to dress, obviously, we don't expect you guys to be wearing a suit and tie, for example, when you come here. You're going to be, doing things that require movement and that kind of thing. But the kind of thing that you wear to work is the kind of attire we are asking you to wear when you come for the seminars and for the exams, because there'll be, you'll be initially spend some time in the hospital. There'll always be patients within the hospital, and then there'll be patients here that you're going to be working with. There are colleagues, there are other tutors, and so yeah, it's an important thing, not only individually, but for for yourselves as a group, and for the course, and for the university more broadly. Okay, so I really encourage you to start thinking along those lines. Some people that you'll encounter over the course of the degree. So the academic people, Anne-Marie Hennessy, Professor Anne-Marie Hennessy is the Dean of the School of Medicine. You'll meet her in second year, and when graduation comes, she'll be the person that hands you your graduate diploma. There are some cardiologists that get involved in the course, and they'll be provide some lectures and at the on-campus seminars. There are other sonographers, Fernando, Kenny, and a sonographer called Susan, who you'll meet. For admin help, there's a really important person in the School of Medicine. Her name's Penny. And sometimes you might email me with something of a administrative nature, and I just don't know where to go. So I'll forward that on to Penny and say, please, can you look after this student? And Penny's a real lovely person and has lots of contacts and has been at the university for a long time and knows how things operate. And if she can't help you, well, you might be out of luck. Hopefully not, but she'll certainly put you in contact with someone. Rob Gill is the physics lecturer. No word of a lie, but Rob is known nationally and internationally. He is very highly regarded in terms of his expertise in ultrasound physics, and his lectures and tutorials are excellent. David Tanis, you should see in second year. He's a cardiologist with a special interest in adult congenital heart disease. And Lily Collison is another person that will be able to help you over the course in terms of assessment items. She's the School of Medicine librarian, and she's really helpful in terms of access to material and the likes. But narrowing that down a little bit more, it's myself, Penny, Lily, and Anne-Marie that probably you'll be corresponding with most often. Okay. Each year there is a scholarship awarded to one of the people one of the students starting the course. Now it's called the GE Healthcare Scholarship. So that is to say, GE sponsor a student every year to the value of $10,000 each year for 2 years. Okay. A little bit more about that. There is obviously a selection criteria. The motivation for the development of the scholarship was to really help people who've come from perhaps a background of disadvantage, whether that be social or financial. With that in mind, if there's anyone of Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander heritage, they will be given particular the criteria. That's part of the criteria. So if there is someone who applies like that, they will be looked at very carefully in terms of their application. But that's not to say that other people won't be either. If you're interested, there's a link there. The applications will close this this month sometime. I'll let you know as soon as I know the date. I have reached out to the people in marketing. They haven't returned my email. Hopefully, I'll be able to tell you early next week when applications close. The application involves, you answering initially a couple of questions, and then there'll be an interview and a few things like that. But I think it's really worthwhile you considering that. I've spoken for a while, and it's probably a good time for me to stop. So does anyone have any questions? If you do have any questions, you might want to just unmute your computer so that you're you're able to be heard. If you're a bit shy and want to leave questions for later, and you want to send me an email or make time to call me, that's fine. But is there anyone who has any questions? Okay, silence. That's okay. What I suggest is you carefully go over the learning guide. They're two really important things. This has been recorded and it will be available on the View site tomorrow. You will have access to that View site from midday tomorrow. Important dates, really important dates, okay? By next Monday, what I said about the supervisors, please remember, send me your supervisor's name and email contact so that I can, as soon as possible, get in contact with them. Please, as I said, use your university email address to correspond with me. The other really important date, let your clinical site know that Monday the 30th to Thursday the 2nd of April is the seminar, okay? And there'll be more details over the next little while, but they're the dates. I hope that I've covered everything. What kind of questions? There's something I've forgotten to mention, and I will send an email, and Penny will also send you an email. Two things. One, make sure that you're enrolled in both units. Principles of Cardiac Sonography 1 and Practice of Cardiac Sonography 1. You need to be enrolled in both, okay? Even more importantly, make sure that you've accepted your offer and you're enrolled in the course. The reason I say that is your access to views, to the home site where so much of the material is going to be available to you, is contingent on the fact that you've enrolled, okay? If you don't enroll, you can't get access. So enrolling is not that hard. So if you haven't done it yet, do it. Secondly, there is a census date. And what the census date is it's a line in the sand beyond which it's more difficult to withdraw from a unit. So the university, the census date, I will give you the details via an announcement, but it's likely to be at the end of this month. If, for example, something were to come up in the next couple of weeks that meant that you were going to find it very difficult to complete these units, you might want to consider withdrawing. Do it before the census date, because it gets, one, increasingly difficult to withdraw beyond census, and two, very difficult not to have to pay some kind of fee. If you get the majority of the way through the unit, the university are going to be very reluctant to provide you with any money back. I've got nothing to do with it. It's just one of those things, okay? The university is a business, and yeah, I don't need to say very much more about that. So that's anyway, that's the census date. Remember to look at your learning guides and things to try and work out which assessment items are a threshold that I spoke to you about. This semester, the two threshold assessment items you need to be concerned about are in the practice of cardiac sonography. Keep an eye out for the homepage, which you should be able to access from tomorrow. Lectures start next week. As I said, there'll be an announcement to tell you just how to access those. Lectures, once they're available, you can access them 24/7. So whenever you need them, they'll be there for you. Once they're available, you'll be able to access them. They won't all appear at once. I mean, it would just defeat, I think, the purpose of structuring things carefully if everything was just available at once, and it would be information overload anyway. Any more questions? None. There weren't any to start with. Well, you guys are perhaps the most quiet and easy to get along with group so far, so maybe that's a good sign. If you're a little bit shy and want to reach out to me, please send me an email. This recording will be up on the View site from tomorrow. You'll be able to see it if there, yeah, anything you want, if there's anything you want to go over again. But for now, I'll stop sharing the screen here, and say thank you. Welcome again. Well done. Really look forward to meeting you all. Really look forward to meeting you all in week 5, and see you then. Okay. Bye.
Thank you.